conference this morning, and it was somewhat of a lengthy conference. We went over the discovery and the exchange of discovery. Of course, because of the two additional victims that have been charged in the superseding indictment, it looks like everything's getting pushed back, and rightfully so, because there's just so much discovery that's forthcoming. You see here, the interns here have a box of, I don't know how many terabytes are in there, but these are things that were disclosed this morning, and that's just on top of all that we've received to date. So we're going to continue to look at the discovery. I'm happy to answer questions if I can, to the extent that I can. So, go right ahead. Sure.
Does the judge, do you feel any pressure from the judge pushing you along to digest this material quicker?
Judges want to move cases along, but quite frankly, Justice Maisy has been very patient. He understands the complexity and the volume of discovery on this case. So he's letting the attorneys do what they have to do to get this case ready for trial. I think it's fair to say that it's an unprecedented type of case in Suffolk County and possibly in the state of New York, in the sense you're now dealing with 6 victims over the course of 30 years. So none of us have encountered this before. So he's giving us the latitude and the leeway to do what we have to do.
How about your client? How's he dealing with the discovery process? The length of it?
He wants his day in court. I stood in front of you folks a year ago, and I said he wants his day in court. He still wants his day in court. He wants his trial. So he's dealing with it as best as he can. He understands that he can't change the circumstances of his environment for now, but he wants his day in court. He's reviewing discovery, so as best as we can, we've given him the discovery. He has, and the sheriff's been great in the sense that, pursuant to a court order, of course, he has been able to review discovery on a computer, and he spends his days doing that. He does have yard for an hour or so each day. He does have law library access, so he's doing these things. You remember, this is an individual who is a professional. He has no prior criminal history. He was used to getting on a train in the morning, going to work, supporting his family, and coming home at night. And now you took this individual, and he's in a cell by himself. So that's what he's doing, but he's doing the best he can at this point. I believe there's definitely communication between him and Assa. I don't know if the two children have seen him or not. I think Victoria has seen him at the jail. I don't believe Christopher has.
Okay, and I did want to ask you a question.
Any guys there? They don't provide that in the jail. He got a haircut. I know he gets his haircut. They do, but they don't. There's no condition in the Suffolk County. So the answer is no. The fact that it's the next court date's October, we have to, from a trial standpoint and from a defense standpoint, we want to have everything before we start the trial. So would I like to have had everything on day one? Of course. But of course that's impossible in this case. And for no other reason, they've added a superseding indictment with the 4th victim, and then they added 2 more. So yeah, it's frustrating only in the sense that we want everything, we want to digest everything, and we want to go before a jury. We don't want to try this case by the government. We don't want to try this case in the press. No offense to you folks, but I know a lot of the evidence, and I want to get in front of a jury.
Are you very interested in doing these separately, the 6 different women, or will they be all part of one?
There's definitely going to be a motion at some point in time to sever the 6 individuals. Now, I don't, in terms of when I say sever, I mean each count in the indictment. At a minimum, the most recent 2 victims in the indictment, specifically I think Castillo and Taylor, those victims, I don't know why, I know strategically why the prosecutor would want to put them in the indictment, because the more the merrier for them. But they have nothing to do with the other 4. there's nothing, no relevance to the other four. The MO is different. The way that the murders allegedly were carried out were different. Where those bodies were, I'm going to say, I hate using these words, but deposited or left is completely different. So as we know here about this Gilgo Beach murders, those two have nothing to do with it. But the prosecutor put them in the grand jury. It's one indictment, and yes, we're going to move at some point to sever those victims.
And MOA hasn't been filed yet?
No, it hasn't. Because in fairness to the defense, in fairness to us, we should have everything before we have to file a motion. And I don't know what else is in the discovery that may help us support our motion. So we're probably going to wait. Danielle Koish is really the head of that department. I'll say a department of motion practice. And we may move forward with it sooner. We're not sure yet. But that I can tell you that will be forthcoming at some point. Yes.
You said your client wants to stay in court. Does that mean he would not even consider a plea deal? Is that something that's been offered? Has that been discussed?
There's nothing that's been offered. There's nothing that's been discussed. He has said he's not guilty from the inception of this case. He has maintained that every single day I've met with him, and he's maintained it every single court day. He has said he's not guilty of these charges. I've seen some evidence. We're going to go forward with the trial.
I know there was some evidence of a hair that connected Castillo to all this. Have you learned more about how she's connected to all this?
All right, so, and that's a good question, Grant. The Castillo murder I've read the grand jury minutes, and the only evidence that I've seen is allegedly one hair that ties my client allegedly to that murder. But listen, the basis of all of these cases, the bulk of their evidence, the strongest piece of evidence that they claim they have is a hair on each body. Now keep in mind, and this is so important, I thought you folks would delve more into this. When this case came out about a year ago, we heard about mitochondrial DNA. And they talked about a hair per person, and it was mitochondrial DNA. And I've read the grand jury minutes, by the way. The grand jury minutes specifically said, these were the experts of the district, of the medical examiner's office, Suffolk County Medical Examiner's office. The witnesses that come in every single day into the courthouse behind us and testify. And these are folks who are experts in their field. They're familiar with the literature. They keep current with what's going on in the DNA world. They are schooled in DNA. And they said that those hairs were unsuitable for nuclear DNA testing. Those were their words in the grand jury. I'm not making this up. I promise you that's what they said in the grand jury. So we came out of that court a year ago, and we started looking at the evidence, and we reiterated that it is unsuitable for nuclear DNA. And the mitochondrial DNA, and then we started talking about the ratios in the population. There are thousands and thousands of people just on Long Island that potentially could be donors for those hairs. And I stood in front of all of you, maybe it was August of last year, maybe it was September, and I said this. And within months of me saying this, now all of a sudden, magically, we have a company in California that says, no, we're able to do nuclear DNA testing. And here are the results. And Rex Heuermann is one out of a zillion, trillion, quad million, I don't know what numbers they use, and he's the guy that DNA belongs to. Well, so I don't understand how the Suffolk County Crime Lab, who come in and testify every day, said it's unsuitable for testing. We reinforced that to the folks in the media. We talked about it, and within a month or two, we have some magician on the West Coast that says it's my client. We're looking forward to trying this case.
Mike.
Yes.
Mike, did you ever consider a change of venue when you're talking about the trial?
We have. And we've talked about that, and it's something that we're definitely considering. In Suffolk County, everybody knows about this case. In Nassau County, everybody knows about this case. The problem is, and we're not committing to anything yet. In every other county in our state, I would suggest that everybody knows about this case. So we're definitely going to explore a potential change in venue. We may very well make that motion. I don't know. But the concern we have we can't get a fair and impartial jury here in Suffolk County. We're going to be able to get a fair and impartial jury. I think there's 62 counties in our state, in any of the other states, in any of the other counties in our state. I don't know the answer.
Mike, you and Ray both use the word voluminous when you're talking about discovery. Would you say you are caught up or up to date or way behind as you keep getting stuff?
I think way behind is a very optimistic view. So I'm definitely not caught up. I'm definitely not way behind. I am extremely way behind, as are they. But you know, let's remember something. Now we have a 30-year investigation. The district attorney's office has hundreds of people working on this case. Investigators, police officers, experts, prosecutors. We have a couple of 2 or 3 attorneys that are working on this case. And we just, when I say just got it, it's been a year. We're working hard. They've had this case from the Gilgo standpoint since 07, 08. And then now you're talking about 2 other murders that they had an investigation on. So,
Are you expecting or anticipating any additional charges? We know law enforcement has said that your client is the chief suspect in Valerie Mack's murder. So what would that mean for your timeline?
for the timeline, I think it's just going to keep pushing things back.
And do you
I don't.
expect that to happen?
I don't know. I mean, if that's really a decision the district attorney can make, again, if they're going to base it on a one hair, and again, the Suffolk County Crime Lab has been on this case. They're not able. It's unsuitable for nuclear DNA testing. This magical company on the West Coast can do it all of a sudden. After we pounded that issue, press conference after press conference after press conference. The medical examiner's office has no scope. They don't make money by doing it. I mean, they make money. They're all paid employees. There's no incentive for the Suffolk County Crime Lab to come up with a solution, come up with a result or not. They're scientists. They do their job. The magicians on the West Coast, you're talking about a private company, and I would venture to say that somebody who's going to be able to go around the country saying they can solve every unsolved crime is going to be flying in their own jet, right? We want to go to jail.
Mike, have you received FBI files that you requested on the case yet?
I have not.
Have you had a chance to review the quote-unquote manifesto that they talked about last month? And is there any relevance to that?
The 2 pages that basically mimic the Mindhunter book, I've seen it.
What did you take on it?
It's Mindhunter. It's a book that allegedly is downloaded on this computer. I mean, there's probably hundreds of thousands of people across our country who have, if not millions, who have read that book and interested in that book, download portions of that book on their computer. I don't. I know the district attorney made a big deal about it. I don't think it's that significant. It all goes into the narrative. It's any piece of the puzzle that they can take and they can fit and they can argue that it's Rex Heuermann. They've done that. And things that don't work for them, you don't hear about. We talked about surveillance. We talked about a year and a half of poll cameras at his house. Poll cameras. And Rex Heuermann, who they claim is this horrific, prolific mass murderer, is being watched for a year and a half, unbeknownst to him. And I've seen that. You folks haven't. I have seen the video from the beginning to the end. And what you see is a guy walking his dog, a guy going to work in the morning with his briefcase and his sport jacket, and coming home at night. But the district attorney, the government doesn't talk about that because it doesn't fit into their narrative. Any other questions? Are you guys getting hot out here?
Yes, just very quickly. It seemed that a couple times before Rex was shaking his head, he even seemed to murmur something at some point. Is he getting frustrated? What's the reason behind that?
Clearly he's getting frustrated. I think we all are. Because, again, you're talking about, so I walk in today, and listen, we want the discovery, but it's coming piecemeal. And every time we think we're making progress and getting over a mountain, the mountain grows and grows. And in essence, that means that the trial date's just going to get pushed off that much further.
Was he happy to see Stewie? I can't believe I'm asking this question.
I can't believe you're asking that either, Grant. Yeah, I mean, it's his dog. I don't know if he saw Stewie, but I did mention that his dog was there, and yeah.
On the motion to sever, could that speed things up in theory if they were to sever and there was a trial, say, on the Gilgo 4? That would seem to move things along faster.
It may or may not, only because we still haven't got all the discovery, even on the first four. On the first four victims, they're still giving us discovery. I think we were told today that on the second search warrant, and I mean, nobody's even brought that up. You have a search warrant when Rex was arrested in July of last year. A year goes by, and now all of a sudden they have information and they need to go back into the house. All of you were camped out for 2 full weeks in Massapequa Park as hundreds, and I don't think, am I exaggerating that there were hundreds of people there?
No.
In and out, I thought
Dozens.
you had a counter, Grant. There were hundreds of people in that house taking evidence, examining evidence, walking out with evidence. Everybody made a big deal about $1 in a case, and it was on the front page of the papers. They talked about all the guns, which were 99% legal. They had to go back 10 months later, and now the 10-month later search apparently is going to yield 3 or 4 times the amount of discovery that the first search yielded. Does that make any sense to you? 2 weeks. 2 weeks with hundreds of investigators and crime scene people in a home.
But they said some of the
I can't
discovery.
move things any quicker, but we want to go to trial.
They said some of the discovery they turned over today was from that initial search warrant from a year ago. So I mean, we're probably looking at getting all that other stuff a year from now.
I don't know. I can't lose any more hair, but it is what it is.
Are you afraid that before the beginning of the trial, are you afraid that before the beginning of the trial, your client will be like linked to other murders?
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time.
Could he be linked to more murders?
The longer
I don't know. I don't know what I know the district attorney spoke to you earlier. Did he indicate that? My understanding is he may have indicated that to you. I don't know what they're going to do. One of the things I can tell you is poll cameras that we received today from another suspect. I want to look at that. I won't say the suspect's name. But you know, let me just say this. There's all these leads. We talked about WH, right? I know we've talked about that in the past, and I had good knowledge that the former DA in this county was prepared to move forward with an arrest of this suspect, WH. Now, WH is so significant because that's the belt, but yet it's my client's grandmother's uncle's neighbor, and therefore it's tied to my client. But you had a WH who they were attributing that belt to. You folks haven't seen Discovery, unfortunately. The sole reason, WH, there were probably 30 strong points of evidence at WH. The sole reason that they decided not to charge WH is because there's an overlap in phone calls. WH's personal phone and this burner phone. So because people can't have 2 phones on at the same time, WH has been eliminated as a suspect. That doesn't make any sense to me. But what happens is you take a narrative and every piece of evidence, and that's what you go with, and that's the case that we have.
The footage that you say you want to look at, is that WH full footage?
Another person. So I've been told.
Last year you had said to us that you thought there were other suspects.
You have to
Last
speak
year you
louder.
mentioned that. Last year you mentioned there were other people that you considered that you had suspects. Do you still feel that way?
Do I think there's other people that are suspects?
Yes.
Well, Rex Heuermann I don't believe is guilty, so certainly there are other people I believe are suspects.
Specific people that you like to see investigated?
Yes. The answer is yes. And I still have a tremendous problem with the Shannon Gilbert. They call it the Shannon Gilbert death. I don't see how you could sit there with a straight face and say Shannon Gilbert is not a homicide. I don't understand. Remember, the 2 bodies now, Castillo and Taylor, are all related to Rex, so says the government. But Shannon Gilbert, which is right there, same spot, same time frame, same MO, that has nothing to do with Rex Heuermann, and that was not a murder. I don't get it, but I'll say it again. we want to get into a court. Okay, are we good, everybody? Anybody else?
How,
You want to look in the box? Do you want box 1, 2, or 3?
One to three.
Sure, you can take a look at the box. Oh no, you can't film it though. You can't film it. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm sorry. You can't film that. But there's a lot of this. There's all hard drives and things of that nature. I'm sorry. I didn't know what you meant.
No worries.
Okay. All right, guys. Thanks.